live on the internet, 30,000, 40,000 strong rising, and we're coming to you live from Dante's. It's live at Dante's Inferno in Portland, Oregon. Now, for those of you who've been following along the last couple of months, we've been taking a paranormal stream. First, we were preparing you for Halloween. We went into some very interesting paranormal investigations, including a local cemetery. And now, kind of the upshot is seeing how the paranormal meshes with the rest of our experience. Now, here at the stage with Ground Zero Lounge, we often talk about the New World Order and how certain major players, and maybe we don't know who they are, maybe we do, are trying to make the hegemony into a reality. Now, to some degree, there is already an economic kind of New World Order, which of course the United States would like to continue to manage. There is the potential for a military New World Order that, of course, George Bush Sr. announced in 1981. Now, there's a little element to this that is paranormal. And the paranormal includes all of what most people would consider religion. Because religion itself is based in a paranormal experience. And then when you have the clash of civilizations that is being presented now, much like in the 12th and 11th century, almost 1,000 years ago, we find ourselves repeating history. Now, all of us today feel like we're on the brink. Almost every day there's some major event happening. Of course, we're 5 years past 9/11, and that was our major event. But how do major events happen? One thing, again, for followers of Ground Zero Lounge, is that it's not just the paranormal, it's not just the psychological, but it's also the historical. We embody, all of us do, all of the experiences of the past. And not just the experiences that we can remember, but also the experiences before there was literature, before there was memory. How was it that our ancestors were able to deal with dramatic change? Well, our ancestors, for them, the most dramatic and important change was the new year. It was a new year, meant a new year of growth, a new year of possibility, and a renewal of the natural cycles. And in order to be assured that the natural cycles, that these important changes would happen, they sacrificed a king. In very primordial times, the sacrifice in our matriarchal past was a king who had been taken for a year and was sacrificed on January 1st. Later on, the king took a substitute, perhaps a young boy, perhaps a village lad. In his stead, he would hang on as a consort, and the young person was sacrificed. Now, we've talked a lot also, I know, about how the demented powers that be are involved in child sacrifice. And why are they involved in child sacrifice? Because they are trying to avoid the major sacrifice, which is the sacrifice of the king. Now, those of us who remember the 60s have lived through the sacrifice of some of our kings. There's a new movie out, Bobby, which talks about Robert Kennedy and his assassination. Some new evidence, too, which is quite fascinating. That 3 CIA operatives who were a part of the Miami CIA anti-Castro brigade, those that were involved in the JFK assassination in '63, were traced to the Ambassador Hotel. For those of you who don't know the RFK assassination, there's been a new BBC special, and they're asking for a reopening of the case. Actually, just like in Dallas, the LA police just played along with the CIA and the FBI. A lot of the the evidence was lost. Of course, what's the popular conception that RFK was killed by Sirhan, sort of point blank? Well, the autopsy revealed that actually Robert Kennedy was killed with two shots from a .22 right behind the ear, less than an inch away. Now that information has been available all of this time. It's like the assassination of RFK too. I mean, from the assassination of these kings of Camelot, of the Kennedys, 40 years ago, something happened. In other words, a king has to be killed in order to accommodate change. Now, as it turns out, that killing of the king did accommodate a change. And the change was consolidation of power in the military-industrial complex. Other people have other names for it. It was a kind of a coup, and we're still living that coup now. There's another movie out, which has to do, called The Queen, which has to do with the assassination of Lady Diana. Now, it doesn't touch us that much here. In England, it touched them a lot, because she was their Diana, she was their Artemis, she actually had better blood than Philip does. She's a Spencer, and she goes all the way back. So we have this concept of sacrifice in order to accomplish some great deed. Now, what is the deed that we're talking about now? As I mentioned, economically, the United States is trying to make an economic hegemony over the world. Having some trouble, but they're doing it. Same militarily, as we know, the Project for a New American Century, our misadventures in Afghanistan and Iraq. And of course, we won't get into the faulty premises of those, but it's clear to see that that's an attempt at military world order. The military side of the military of the New World Order. But what about religion? What about religion? We talk about the conflict between Islam and Christianity, and of all the different factions of Christianity. But what if there's a movement afoot to consolidate all of the world religions into one? What if this was essential to the New World Order? Not just the political, not just the economic, but also the religious. So we have everybody attending the new church, as everybody will be in obedience to the new military regime. It goes hand in hand, and that's where our paranormal experience comes into play. And I ask you, and I'm going to leave this with you, what would it take? What would it take to have this happen? What kind of event, what dramatic event would have to happen before this new church, this worldwide church, actually just sprung upon us and embraced the military and economic arms until we had an apparatus that completely choked out any possible breath or thought of individual thought? And of course, the person who can best answer this question is standing in the wings. It's my pleasure to introduce Clyde Lewis.
Thank you very much, brother. Good job. Give up a hand for that. It's awesome. Tonight, there are so many directions I can take this show because of what I am beginning to notice. And as Larry had brought up, many times from the stage, I have talked about the right of the divine king. I've talked about the ecumenical annexation of religion. And I have said that this is how they can create a kingdom or an empire and groom the people in order for them to follow and obey. I had said that many times people will argue, as Larry said, about the economic factions, the economic ideas that bring this war, the oil, those types of things. But we're looking at a time where the powers that be, the extreme powers that be, the hegemonistic powers that be, want full control of you, and the way to do it is to create a religious empire. Now, last week, for those of you who attended Ground Zero Lounge, we dropped a bombshell right here in this room. And that bombshell was that Bruce Burgess, who is a promoter, a director, he is also a producer for many films. He works for Blue Book Films. He's a producer that I met in Hollywood. When I was meeting with him, we were working on some projects to try and bring to the History Channel, to the Discovery Channel. He told me, he said, "You read Holy Blood, Holy Grail?" I said, "Yes." He said, "You know the Da Vinci Code's coming out in film?" I said, "Yes." He says, "They're going to be scrambling because the Da Vinci Code is going to drop a big bombshell, and that is perhaps that there is a descendant that is going to be ruling the world eventually." I said, "Yeah, that goes along with my theory of what the Antichrist might be, or what might the world ruler or the Rex Mundi might be." You know, they call it different things. To the Muslims, he is the Imam. To the Christians, he is the Antichrist. And to many other people, he's known as Rex Mundi. To the Arthurians, he's known as King Arthur. Okay? And everyone, for some odd reason, if you read books by White and several others, we have that longing for that Arthurian archetype, that king, that queen, that knight, that leader, that religious leader that will lead us all into that great, wonderful promised land. We had it with Jesus, and you know, it's a big force in trying to create a kingdom or an empire. The Romans knew that they had to get behind something and bring it forward, mix it with all the pagans and mix it with all the Gnosticism and bring it to you as a religion. They put it all together in some big ball of goo and threw it at the people, and the people that didn't take it, they forced them to take it, and eventually it became the norm. And now for thousands of years, we've had Christianity, same with Islam, same with Judaism. All these religions have all been created by secret societies to keep the people in line. Well, you divide the group so many times, and you see so much chaos, you see so many problems, that as Larry had brought up, there are rituals known as the Divine King ritual, where a king would be sacrificed if his kingdom was going bad, if the land was blighted, if something was falling apart, there would be a sacrifice. Now, as Larry pointed out, that this king sometimes would say, "I don't want to be the one, we will send somebody in the stead to be that sacrifice. They will be the lamb that we send to the slaughter." As we pointed out last week, that the idea that Jesus Christ and Mary Magdalene is the subject of cover-up right now with things like the Da Vinci Code, and how we brought to the forefront that these guys were actually being told by the French intelligence, by a group of people, that Jesus and Mary Magdalene may be buried in Rennes-le-Château when they allegedly escaped to Gaul and created the Merovingian dynasties and all of the kingdoms that have been established with everyone who claims that they have the bloodline of Christ in them. Now, I told you it would be important, and it is very important for this reason. Because now they're beginning to dig up old bones, and they're shaking them in front of you with movies like Robert Kennedy, the Bobby movie that's out. We just had the anniversary of JFK's assassination just recently. They called JFK the part of the Camelot, the idea that he was our king, and Jacqueline Onassis was our queen, or Jacqueline Kennedy was our queen. And we all are longing for that type of Arthurian type of leadership. And the only way to bring that about is to unite the kingdoms, or to bring them together. And we're religiously divided, we're economically divided, we're politically divided, and so we have to find a way to harness them all in under one homogenized government. A new world order. You need to have a king of the world. It's not President Bush, okay? And it's not going to be some Middle Eastern turban guy with a blue turban. It's not going to be any of that. What it's going to be is it's going to be done in small, little events that are going to lead up to that great event. Let me tell you what I'm getting at here. How many people, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie yet, The Queen. by applause. Are you ready? No? Okay. New movie out called The Queen. Okay? We're going to play you a preview of that right now. I just want you to get the feel of what they're trying to do with this film. It's a new film that's been released. They're saying it's amazing, and it's getting good box office reviews. It's called The Queen. We're going to play you a preview of that right now. So let's bring the lights down and show you a preview of The Queen. This movie, The Queen, was released, and in fact, the woman who's playing the Queen was really scared about what she was doing by playing the Queen, and saying that the reaction that Queen Elizabeth had to Princess Diana's death was destroying the monarchy. And the purpose was lost on the people of Diana's death. It kind of brings about the idea that she was a sacrificial lamb, that she was that divine king, or that divine sacrifice that had to be done for reasons we don't know. But we have talked about in the past that Princess Diana was a sacrifice, and that there are several things I will point out in a minute after we show you this preview. Okay. Hold on one second. After we show you this preview, I will demonstrate to you what happened. Oh, you just blew that up?
Thank you, Bill Gates.
Oh, did you just crash? Okay, we just crashed. Anyway,
Every once in a while.
Well, we can talk about Diana a bit if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. If you want to talk about Diana.
Well, we
go
want
ahead.
to talk about that, she was, again, as a spinster, she had more royal blood than Philip does. But I think the real key was that she captured the imagination of the English people in a way that the Kennedys had a couple of decades before. Because she was gracious to the people, she helped children. There were many positive things that she was, and a certain amount of glamour, that she was bringing to the table as the princess. Now, after the divorce, of course, and most of you know this story, that she was pregnant with a Muslim child at the point in which she was killed. And at this point, we talk about, and Clyde said it earlier, about the impossibility of mixing bloodlines. And that crossed the line. And that's really why she was killed.
Pretty much, the idea here is that I have talked about, we talked about at Halloween, we talked about up to this point, that they value this genetic code, this type of bloodline idea. This idea that there's one bloodline purer than another bloodline. And we, as the commoners, we don't believe that crap. I don't believe that my blood is any better than your blood. It's kind of a genetics type of idea that someone's pedigree is better because of where they were raised. There's still people that have their prejudices and they feel it, but when you start to say that your bloodline is the direct descended bloodline from Jesus Christ, and you don't tell anybody right out, but it is under there, it's under the radar, this is what they're saying. When you start saying that, it says something very, 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 I guess you'd say, very important to those who stand behind the monarchies, stand behind the royal families. When you say that you get messages directly from God, like George W. Bush has said, when you say that you're getting messages from people, start paying attention. Because there are people that want to believe. It's like Larry said, it's a paranormal experience. It's something that people are afraid to rebel against. And that's why when I tread into this territory, I feel as though people say, well, Clyde, I had somebody once take me aside when I was talking, and they said, well, you say you're a Christian, Clyde, but how can you be such a Christian when you say such horrible things about Christ? I said, I'm not saying anything horrible about Jesus. I'm saying that we need to step outside of our dogmas and start to realize that if we start believing too much, we become fanatical, we become hysterical, and we will definitely lose in the end, because it's a grooming tactic that they've used forever to keep us held in their hands and held in their control and their grip. So what I'm getting at is last week when we were talking about what we were talking about the idea that perhaps they do have evidence that maybe Jesus Christ did not die on the cross, and that Mary Magdalene and him are buried somewhere in France. I mean, even if it's faked, even if it's hoaxed, it is sending a message out to the churches. You either get together and become a group of people, a large group or a large kingdom, or you're going to fail and you're going to lose. Okay? And that is what is happening. In fact, there are some things that, looks like we're getting some image back, hopefully. I'd like to, there's some things that I'm going to be showing you shortly that really got me thinking, what is that?
That would be the Anticlaus.
Okay.
Wrong show.
Wrong
Sorry.
show. So do we have the image of the Queen then? Do we have that image that we're showing now?
See if I can find the Queen.
Okay, we're going to bring the Queen up right now. I want you to see the preview to this, because I want you to hear some of the words that are being said in this preview of the movie. And I'm going to go see this film because I have a feeling that there are going to be a lot of things said in the movie that will really, really solidify what I've been saying all along, is that the monarchies and the Stuarts and all of these bloodlines, pay attention to what they're talking about, because they're all part of the plan. Here we go. You got it up? I don't see anything, I just hear it. Everything's good. Okay, cool. All right, this is the, sorry for the delay, but here's the preview to the movie The Queen. This is some fascinating stuff.
Good evening, ma'am. I'm sorry to disturb, but it's the Princess of Wales. Why? What's she done now?
That's some very sad news to bring you.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has died after a car crash in Paris.
The Prime Minister, Tony Blair,
Is about to make a statement.
Princess Diana, touched with the lives of so many others. She was the people's princess.
No member of the royal family will speak publicly about this. Diana is no longer a member of the royal family.
What are you talking about?
Charles, this is a private matter. We do things in this country quietly, with dignity.
Will someone please save these people from themselves?
questions are being asked about why the Queen has to address her subjects at this time of national grief.
The Prime Minister for you, ma'am. We've seen today's statements. 70% of people believe that your actions have damaged the monarchy. Who do you think he's talking to?
Can you imagine I'm going to drop everything and come down to London before I attend to my grandchildren? Then you're mistaken.
Try and see it from her perspective. She's been brought up to believe it's God's will.
She is who she is.
I think we should leave God out of it.
What would you suggest, Prime Minister? Some kind of a statement?
The moment this statement has passed. Your Honour.
Something's happened. There's been a change, some shift in values. Maybe he's got a point. What if my actions are damaging the crown? I prefer to keep my feelings to myself. Foolishly, I believed that was what the people wanted from their queen. When you no longer understand your people, maybe it is time to hand it over to the next generation.
Notice the words that were used in the preview. Things like, let's keep God out of this. Things like, I think it's God's will. Other things, maybe we should hand this over to the next generation. What is going on with my kingdom? Why all this interesting change in their attitudes? How many people are familiar with the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical called Evita by Applaud? There's actually a song in that musical. And I lived in Argentina for a while. I know the mystique and the mystery that is involved with the Camelot type person. That's, of course, Juan Perón and Eva Perón. And Evita, of course, was based on the Eva-Juan Perón rule in Argentina. And there was actually a song in that musical where the character, I know in the movie, it was Antonio Banderas.
Che.
He was playing Che, right? It was Che Guevara, and he was saying, this Watch the country all fall apart now because their glorious leader is dead. Watch the country come apart at the seams as their glorious leader passes away. Watch how they all change in attitude. What he was basically singing and lamenting and being sarcastic all at the same time about is the fact that a divine king or a divine princess, if you will, dies, and they knew what the outcome would be if the death happened. That's why they did it. And they did it also because of the fact, as Larry pointed out, that Princess Diana was meddling with the bloodlines associating with people like Dodi Al-Fayed. So it was either Dodi's family that wanted Princess Diana dead, or it was the royal family that wanted them dead, or it could have been a combination of the two, because they have this thing about the bloodlines. Okay? They have this thing about the bloodlines, and that's what was pointed out in our last show. I want to play something rare for you right now. This is BBC footage taken on the night of Princess Diana's death. I didn't get a chance to see any of this until now. I was on a plane coming home from Las Vegas when I learned of her death. This is some very interesting stuff. This is taken from the night she died.
As I say, Nick, visiting from all over the world and commenting to the little princess.
Maxi Marley, thank you. Confirmation that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident in the French capital, Paris. Her companion, the Egyptian-born Dodi Al-Fayed, and the driver, said to be a security officer, were also killed. The accident occurred in a road tunnel near the River Seine after the couple had dined at the Ritz Hotel. Police said the princess's car was being followed by press photographers at the time, and believe that one of them may have been responsible for the accident. The statement from Buckingham Palace said the Queen and the Prince of Wales were deeply shocked and distressed by this terrible news. The British Prime Minister, Tony Blair, has said, "I am utterly devastated. The whole of our country, all of us, will be in a state of shock and mourning." That is the news from BBC News.
This is BBC Television from London. Normal programming has been suspended, and we now join Martin Lewis in the news studio.
This is BBC Television from London. Diana, Princess of Wales, has died after a car crash in Paris. The French government announced her death just before 5 o'clock this morning. Buckingham Palace confirmed the news shortly afterwards. Normal programmes have been suspended while we bring you the latest developments throughout the morning.
While this was playing, and she told me, she said, one of the things about Eva Peron and Princess Diana is that one of the things that they both did not like about those two is that they managed to mingle with the common people. That blood of theirs getting next to the blood of ours. You see, this is where they place themselves. They place themselves in this area of holier than thou. And of course, her 10-year anniversary of her death coming up. Her sons are going to be throwing a party. A bunch of musicians are going to be playing. They're going to re-celebrate this again. And so the idea is Princess Diana was more than just a princess. And if you were to take a look at prophecy, if you're taking a look at like the Bible, for example, in the book of Revelation, not very many people are going to notice this right offhand. But I began to notice this when I was reading in the book of Revelation chapter 12 about exactly what happened that night. See, in the book of Revelation, there is actually a story that talks about a woman. They call her the woman of Babylon. And basically what happens is it says, a woman clothed with the sun on her and the moon at her feet, wearing a crown of 12 stars, is standing above the ocean, and she's pregnant. Okay, it says in the Bible she's pregnant. And she's about to give birth to a child, and this dragon rises up out of the ocean and devours the child. Okay? And what's interesting about this story is that when you take a look at the moon at the foot of a woman, the moon is a representation of the goddess Diana. Many of those people in that era were Dianic worshippers. In fact, if you go back and read about the Ephesus, they worship the goddess Diana. And so, you take a look at the moon, the goddess of the moon is Diana. Diana is standing there with the 12 stars on her head, representing the 12 tribes of Israel, the 12 apostles, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12. Okay? And she's pregnant with a child. Now, I find it interesting that it says that the child is born and then the dragon rises up from the ocean and basically swallows or devours the child, which, if you translate it, means rears the child. And the woman apparently goes to a place that God has prepared for her, and then she dies. Princess Diana, after giving birth to Prince William, basically went to France, and when she went to France, there she died. She was killed in a tunnel, and that tunnel is Pont des Almes tunnel. That tunnel is a sacred ground, a Merovingian sacred sacrificial site, and those who died there were often sent right to heaven, and their children were sainted immediately after that. Okay? So moving on to the next picture, Princess Diana, at her funeral, if you notice that they had the lion or the symbol on her casket, the lion, of course, is the symbol of Leo, the symbol of the sun. The sun shines down on her, the moon at her feet. It's all symbolic of the zodiac. Let's go to the next slide. Then it says that the dragon rises up out of the ocean and devours the child. The dragon, of course, is the symbol of the commerce of London. If you look around you, every crest has the symbol of the dragon on it. And then, of course, the Prince of Wales, his symbol is the dragon as well. So what I'm getting at is prophecy can be interpreted, and it can be interpreted to demonstrate that maybe it's being fulfilled now as a blueprint. I'm not saying that it's true. What I'm saying is that they look at it and they can create whatever they want to get the commoners to believe that this is what has happened. Let's go to the next shot. This is a shot of Prince Charles with wings coming off of his back, and if you see below, there are dead bodies at his feet, dead dying soldiers at his feet.
Where does this come from, Clyde?
This is going to be next to the Jesus Christ statue in Brazil. This is a smaller scale that's going to be placed next to the Jesus Christ statue in Brazil, and it's going to be called Prince Charles, Savior of the World. And it basically is him trampling all, being the Prince of Peace, and trying to unite the kingdoms after a major war. This is where, remember back when I was doing the shows about all the time we make our leaders into looking like gods, or vanquishing gods or what have you? This is a perfect example of this right here. They don't look upon the leaders as just people. They look upon them as gods. And the reason why is because they claim to have that bloodline of Jesus Christ coming from them because of that little thing we talked about last week. That Jesus had kids, and these guys are the offspring of those kids. Yeah, and look, exactly. He's wearing a loincloth like Jesus did.
Who created this?
A Brazilian sculptor. I don't know who he is. What's that? What are you saying?
They're gonna make a giant one?
Yes, they are. Make a giant one right next to Jesus.
Who else is involved? Like the country of Brazil?
The Brazilian government's doing it, and the British government's doing it.
Is there a website where we can find out about this project? God?
Yes, there is. You can down. I don't know the name of it. But you can just put it in Prince Charles, Savior of the World, and they'll show it to you. That's what we got. Prince Charles. I don't know. I don't know why Brazil. I don't know what it's about, but they're doing it, and it's really scary that they're doing it. So yeah, just type in Google Prince Charles, Savior to the World, and you'll find it. Okay, let's go to the next shot. As we were looking over the shot of Prince Charles, Savior of the World, we noticed that it looked a lot like, it reminded me and it reminded Paige of Shiva. And the idea that Shiva, of course, stepping over the dead, and then Shiva becomes the destroyer of the worlds, or becomes the warlike person.
That's clyde.
It eventually becomes.
No, that's Shiva's.
Shiva
is a female aspect.
Kali is the female aspect.
It's got boobs.
I have become the destroyer of worlds, basically. The idea that we have to destroy the world in order to save the world. And we were noticing that as we were looking through. We thought it's just like it's just like any other religious icon. They make it look religious, and people start following after it. It's really kind of creepy. They're going to do the same thing with Lady Diana too. Princess Diana is going to be in the same way, because what did they do? They buried Princess Diana in the middle of a lake, so that she could become what? The Lady of the Lake, more or less like a King Arthur type of archetype, which is really kind of a bizarre thing, but that's what they did it for, because of course Prince William, his second name is Arthur. That was the whole purpose of naming him that. In fact, they were hoping to name him Arthur, but Princess Diana didn't approve of it. Let's go to the next shot. Pretty close up right here, especially the Jesus Christ bloodline. You notice all these are like the blood. They did this like genealogy for the Queen, and if you move it over, you notice there's Jesus Christ, Mary, Joseph of Arimathea, and if you go down, it goes Elizabeth Bowles Lyon right there, right to the throne. Direct bloodline from Christ into Queen Elizabeth. See, when I tell you this, I'm not kidding, okay? This is what they do. They try to convince the world that Queen Elizabeth she sits on the throne of David. She sits on the stone of stone, making her the Queen of Israel. Okay? Now, how do we get an entire world to accept this? How do we do it? We have to somehow unite the kingdom, unite the religious orders in order for someone to believe that the monarchy does have that kind of power, because they don't believe it now. They have to restore it. As you saw in that preview, the reaction of Queen Elizabeth could have been just destroying everything that they worked for. Destroying everything they worked for. And they're trying to rebuild that again. They're trying to rebuild that again. Let's go to the next slide. Also, how many people have heard the rumor that George Bush and John Kerry are cousins? Well, they are. They are by bloodline. And they trace the bloodlines all the way back to Elizabeth Cook and Edmund Reed. And you go even farther than that. You go through all those bloodlines and how they're distant cousins. Go to the next shot. These are all connected. We did some more research. The next shot. They're all connected to Vlad the Impaler, Count Dracula.
I thought it was Erasmus that you were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, and there's Prince William right at the bottom, taking it all. But they're all interconnected. They're all intermarried, all interrelated, all interconnected. That's why you will never be president of the United States. You will never be president of the United States because you don't have the bloodline. Tough shit.
You don't have the blood of Dracula, nor the blood
Yeah,
of...
you don't have the blood of Dracula or the blood of Christ flowing through your veins.
Or Crowley.
Or even Crowley. Okay? Go to the next cut. Now, the reason why I am talking about this tonight is because of something that I read in the paper on Sunday. In a world of trouble, the need for a common voice. This time is right for renewed ecumenical collaboration as Catholics and Anglicans see mutual concerns and benefits. Pope Benedict XVI is going to Turkey. That is going to be a big mistake. If he survives Turkey, his mission is to speak with Bartholomew of the Orthodox faith, and also he's going to be speaking with the Archbishop of Canterbury, and he's going to propose that all of their religious differences go away and become a huge ecumenical order. I heard on the news this morning, and this is what got me worried, was they said in the news that he's offering a branch of peace, an olive branch of peace to these factions, including the Muslims. I'm betting people remember the quip that I threw out there that I was reading somewhere that secretly Prince Charles was converted to Islam. Yeah. This is what is happening, okay? Behind the scenes, we're all killing each other, and they're okay with that because the blood's being shed, the sacrifices are going on. We're all killing each other, but their secret agenda is to unite against a common enemy. Now, who do you think that common enemy is? What's that? I can tell you who it's going to be. And everybody's going to laugh. Israel. Oh, did you say? I didn't hear you.
I said the Jews.
The Jews. Yeah.
No Jews.
You all think that, we're all nicey-nicey with the Jews? No. It's happened before, it'll happen again, and if all of this happens, Israel will be attacked. And that is the future. Because it's been foretold. Don't discount prophecy if they're using it as a blueprint. And I'm going to point that out to you later on in this conversation. Don't discount prophecy if it's laid out as a blueprint. I showed it to you with Princess Diana. You can say it's specious all you want. Go home and read your Bibles. Revelation 12, it's all there. Princess Diana's death is all there written for you in the book of Revelation. It's scary, it's there. Look at Revelation 9:11. The whole thing about the attacks on New York, right there in the Bible. Looking at the great city on fire, looking up with dust coming down on their heads. It's all there. They use this as a blueprint. It's a blueprint to nudge God, to nudge Armageddon, to nudge the apocalypse, so you all can see that these are the last days. It's business as usual in the apocalypse, and business is good, and they're using it to get people to pay attention. That's why, in our apocalyptic culture, we're paying more attention to this than anyone else will. We care more about the apocalypse than Australia does. We care more about the apocalypse than even the Vatican does. Okay? Let's go to the next one. When you turn the page and you look at this ecumenism, a common enemy of secularism, you see this picture of the Pope, and he's got the bent cross held up like this. He's got it held up to his head. Does anybody know the significance of that? That photo opportunity is one of the scariest photos you'll ever see if you care about Pope Benedict. That, putting the cross up to the head, has been a symbol for reconciliation. It means, I come to you, I'm doing my penance, I want to reconcile everything that I've done, I'm reconciling my sins, I'm throwing myself at the mercy of God, I am about to take a journey into a territory where I am not liked, where I'm not loved, and I may come out harmed, I may come out dead, but I'm doing it for the reasons to change the kingdom, to change the way people think. Perfect example of this. Do you remember in Star Wars where Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi were fighting? What was the thing that Ben Kenobi did before Darth Vader struck him down? He did that with his sword. If a warrior in medieval times was to hold his sword to his head, that meant reconciliation. He's reconciling with God before he's struck dead because he knows that the war is over for him. What's that? Sadie? What is it?
When you, in the very day-to-day, if you're religious or if you've been to any service, especially Catholic, when you cross yourself, it's the Father, the Son, and then the Holy Spirit. So you're reconciling and paying homage to the Father by going from him.
Right. So that's basically a stance by a pope of reconciliation. I'm about to go in and I'm going to lay myself on the line for my flock. That's basically what he's doing. The shepherd is giving up, pretty much. Go ahead.
I just want to say that the symbolism of this isn't lost on me either. When you take into consideration that the last thing they do in the last rites is to lay the cross on the forehead of the dead. It's reconciliation with God. It's squaring your shit with God before you go to see Him. And quite frankly, I find it a little bit odd. I find it a little bit, I might be jumping ahead just a ditch here, but does anybody remember what Pope Benedict XVI, Pope Benedict Arnold said a few weeks back about the Muslims? Does anybody recall a statement that he might have made, the infallible Pope might have made about Muhammad, about how he never brought anything to the table that wasn't evil? What the hell is he doing going to Turkey if he thinks that, and reconciling with these people, if he honestly believes that there's nothing but evil that comes out of this religion? What's he doing?
He's going into hell. He's going into hell to bring heaven to his people. That's what he's doing. That's what that is. He is putting the cross to his head and saying what they always say on Ash Wednesday when they put the cross into the head. They say, "Ashes thou art, and ashes you will always be." He's already reconciled.
He'll become a martyr.
He'll become a martyr if he dies. There's a possibility that he could, they're taking all kinds of security precautions for the Pope. This is frightening. When he's doing this, he knows. He's doing what every soldier that has a sword does when he knows he's about to fall. He's putting it to his head and saying, "God, my life is in your hands." Let's go to the next slide. This is something that happened as well. You notice that...
we know they've been doing it on purpose for 3 centuries.
That's right, and that's what I'm saying. Don't discredit prophecy when it's used as a blueprint. You just don't do it. You take a look at all the prophecies around you and you figure it out. Yeah, this has happened. Now, the final Pope that doesn't have a number is Peter the Roman. Bring up that picture. Peter the Roman, after Gloria Olivae, or the Benedicti, or the Olive, here is Pope John Paul putting the cross up to his head again, as a Hindu, is giving him the touch of the forehead as well. And it's basically, he's having someone who is not of his faith touching him and giving him the mark of Shiva on his head, which I find interesting. It says John Paul II is marked with the sign of the adorers of Shiva in Bombay. Fascinating, isn't it? I have become deaf. Next slide. You see, this is something that I hope you remember about what the Pope is doing. That I saw that in the paper and I went, holy hell. The Pope's going to Turkey, and he's also talking about ecumenical brotherhood, and then comes the big one, and that is he offers an olive branch of peace. And this is why it's so important that I bring this up to you. How many people are familiar with the prophecies of Malachi? Anyone? By applause? Okay.
We've spoken of it.
There are a few people who pay attention to what I talk about here at Ground Zero Lounge, and they know, and there are new people here that don't know. The prophecies of Malachi, there was an Irish Catholic bishop who made prophecies about the popes. And he wrote about 111 popes, and then the last pope was 112 pope. He didn't give it a number. He just stated that these are the names of the popes, and this is how it's going to all come about, and what have you. And he said that Joseph Ratzinger would be our last pope. Okay? He would be our last pope. Let me show you the first prophecy that he made about John Paul I. He didn't come right out and call this pope John Paul I. What he did is he called the pope Di Mediate Lunae, which means of the half moon. Now, very interesting about John Paul I. John Paul I was elected pope on August 26, 1978. He reigned 33 days. 33 days. That's a little over a month when he died. Although many think he was murdered. And a lot of people believe that Pete Dewey did him in. 33 days, secret society, 33 Masons. They said the Masons had taken over. This is what had happened. He was poisoned. He was born in the Diocese of Belluno, which means beautiful moon, coincidentally.
He was baptized albino Luciani, which means white light. Also on August 26, 1978, the moon appeared exactly half full and was in its waning phase, and he died the following month, soon after an eclipse of the moon. Okay? So the moon ruled him. And he was called the Mediate Lumen, which I thought was very interesting. That's what he was called in the prophecy of Malachi. Now let's move to the prophecy regarding Pope John Paul II. He was called the De Labore Solis, which means of the solar eclipse. Not very many people are here tonight. I talked about the eclipse, and I talked about Pope John Paul II, his death, and how so many weird coincidences were taking place with him. How many people remember the day that he was buried? He was buried on the day of what? A solar eclipse. Who else was supposed to be married on that day, but they couldn't be married on that day because the Pope was going to be buried on that day? Charles and Camilla, exactly. They had to postpone that. You see, these types of things are symbolic to royalty. They're symbolic to the popes. They're symbolic to these people who feel they have the royal blood flowing through them. So, Pope John Paul traveled all around. He came from the east like the sun. He traveled around the world many times like the sun does. And the morning that he was born, there was a near total eclipse of the sun over Europe. And then that was according to the prophecy of the 110th Pope. And he would be the Pope that would be of the labor of the sun. He died and was buried on a day that was a solar eclipse, which was also coincidental. Or was it? You see, this is all ritualistic and it's weird, I know, but it's certainly part of the prophecy. Don't discredit prophecy when it's a blueprint, once again. Let's go to the final one for... No, let's go to Ratzinger, sorry.
You didn't give me.
I didn't give you. Yeah, I did give you Ratzinger. It's in there. Can you go in somewhere? You go in and find him. I'll talk about it. It's in the file about the popes. I sent it to you. The thing about Cardinal Ratzinger is, and this is where I get to that. This is where I get to that olive leaf, olive branch thing. The Pope that was predicted, and I was toying with this, and I talked about this here at the lounge, was that that Cardinal Ratzinger would be Pope. I thought he would be Pope, but then I thought, wait a minute, it says in the prophecy of Malachi that the prophecy will be for a Pope that will be of the glory of the olive, or a Benedictine Pope. Now what was fascinating is that we had called around, Sarah had called around and asked if Ratzinger was a Benedictine, and he wasn't. Okay, he wasn't a Benedictine. But what he was that he was born at the time of the feast of Benedict Joseph Labore, who was a Saint Benedict as well, and he took the name Benedict as Pope, which also fulfilled the prophecy. Okay? All right. I guess he doesn't have it. It should be in that file because I sent it to you in an email. So what happened is that Malachi had said that this all was going to take place, and sure enough, the Benedictine turned out to be Benedict XVI. He was put in office, and he said that he would, that in the prophecy, that he would offer a branch of peace and try to unite the churches, but he would in turn go sour. When Benedict was put into the Pope, when he was put into the papacy, he basically stated he stated that he would have a short reign. He said, I'm too old for this. People were surprised. He's 79 years old. He's had several strokes, and it was even rumored that he had cancer. The Pope predicted a short reign in remarks just after his election. He says, my age, my health are not going to let me. So already, he knows that he's a dying Pope. He knows that he's got nothing to lose to go into Turkey and try to reconcile the damage he's done. And if you recall, when Pope John Paul II was his attempted assassination, who did it? A Turk. A Turkish terrorist tried to kill Pope John Paul II. So he's not very liked. He's not liked at all in Turkey. Go ahead, Sarah.
I'm just wondering why we're treating this as a coincidence. The church could choose men to groom from a very young age to match this prophecy easily. For all
comes, there'll be a pope that will be immediately followed by Petrus Romanus, because no number is assigned to Petrus Romanus or Peter the Roman. He and Gloria Olivae might be one and the same. Or because no number is assigned to Petrus Romanus, any number of popes could intervene between these two popes. Because no number is assigned to Petrus Romanus, it's also possible that this Roman or Italian will not be an actual pope, that Peter the Roman may take on the role of pope without putting on the robe of the pope. Under this possible scenario, a catastrophe in the Vatican, perhaps a terrorist attack or an assassination, could immediately throw the church into crisis. Which means that the next pope could very well not be ordained in a manner that would be suitable, and therefore, as Malachi has said in his prophecies, he will become the false pope, or the false prophet, or the pope that will be a part of a church that no longer exists, the destruction.
All over the world. They have 33% of the gold bullion in the world is controlled by the Vatican. So if they cannot allow the Vatican and the Vatican government, which is a state, it's a government into itself, to fall into this order. The Jesuits would take over, and so that, they could have the head of the Jesuits, who is not really a pope, actually being charged.
So, once again, the right of the divine king, the pope could fall, the president could fall, Prince Charles could fall, any number of people who are considered to be the divine right could fall, because they need to improve what has been destroyed. You've heard all the horrible things about Iraq, you've heard all the horrible things about Islam and the fighting with Christianity, you've heard all of that things about the Jews, you've heard all of this horrible, horrible hatred that's being spewing forth from people like, like Michael Richards and Mel Gibson, and all these people that are saying all these horrible things about each other. It's down inside of all of us. That rage is about to be unleashed, and all they need is a trigger event to create World War III. And what better way to create World War III to destroy a divine king, to change the world? Now, if you think that I'm talking out of my ass, I now give you the last picture of our presentation. This is a book that's been released. It's a big seller in Turkey right now. It's called Who Will Kill the Pope in Istanbul?
With English on the cover.
Right. This book was released, and still the Pope wants to go, and he wants to face these people because he believes he's wronged them. You saw him holding the cross to his head. He's pretty much offering himself. He's basically going into a suicidal area, pretty much. And what's really fascinating about this book, who do you think kills the Pope in this book? Anyone want to give a guess? Anyone?
I hear a Turk.
Do I hear Turks? Do I hear, God, come on, do I hear Turks? Do I hear Jews? Do I hear, what do I hear? Anyone?
I'm gonna hit me. Maybe a Buddhist.
Mel Gibson.
Opus Dei kills the Pope.
Oh!
Opus Dei kills the Pope.
Well, not directly.
Huh?
Not directly. They'll still get help.
Yeah, well, Opus Dei, a secret organization that brought you the Passion of the Christ, Opus Dei, that group that's behind Mel Gibson's father, Opus Dei, the group that's with all the pontiffs now, Opus Dei, that secret society that everybody loves and doesn't understand. The albino monk from the Da Vinci Code, Opus Dei. All these, and that's just why, remember I was telling you the church is scrambling to try and discredit all of these thoughts that there's a secret that needs to get out, and if that secret gets out, it'll destroy the churches. Why do you think that they're teaming up? Because the secret is about to get out. I showed it to you here tonight. I showed it to you last week. Okay? And I told you, I said, even though it may be over your heads, it's going to mean something to you later. I hate to tell you, I don't want to tell you that the Pope was going to be killed in Turkey. But everything is pointing to the possibility that this is what is happening. They're setting him up like a lamb to the slaughter, like a martyr, he's... And they will make it look like they made Bobby Kennedy look like, they made JFK look like, they made Princess Diana look like. All these watershed events where people of great power, the divine kings, the divine rulers, someone has to die in order to make the change take place. We got to go to the next phase. We've been stuck in this circle for so long. In fact, they just announced our milestone is that the war has been going on longer than World War II. They did that today, so we're now longer than World War II officially. We got to get out of the cycle. And one way to do it is to cause to cause this type of thing to happen. We're not getting out of the cycle. We're not. The wars are going to continue. They're just going to get bigger and worse, and people are going to start changing their attitudes about what they truly believe. We're going to wrap up right now. Tony Green's going to go and sing. Tony Green's going to go and sing, and then karaoke from hell. We want to thank you all for coming out. We're going to keep, hopefully more and more. Let's hope we don't have the Pope dying in Turkey, but from what I gather, it's pretty scary right now. So, and one more thing before we go, I want to remind you, this Saturday, Rose and Raindrop, right there on Grand Avenue, we're having the overnighter. We're going to get together around 11 o'clock. We'll do the lottery like we did before. 10 couples are going to be there. Those who are involved with the seances are going to come. Those with the camera equipment are going to be there. We're going to do a full-on investigation until about 6 in the morning with downloads to the computers. Bring your computers, bring your cameras, bring your money. We're going to have a lottery to get people in. It's going to be an amazing time. So come on by. It starts. We're going to get there about 11 o'clock. We're going until 6 a.m. at the Rose and Raindrop right there on Grand Avenue. Okay? Have a good night. See you later.
Species.